Okay. So when we have trauma, a lot of the times we shut off certain senses and we turn on others. And it kind of happens naturally. The other thing that happens is because we're in that kind of vigilant state where our bodies are looking for ways to stay safe. This is also part of that, is that we turn on heightened senses. So we're more aware of what we feel around us. That cues in like the empath. We become more intuitive. And this doesn't only happen from trauma, but it also happens the more we practice yoga. And so as we get into this, I think it's really important to just understand the different types of ways that we can pick up information. Deborah, did you have something to add though too?
I'm just going, wow, because
I know.
first of all, I just figured out what the clairs means, clairsentient, clairvoyant. Okay. I thought, who's Claire before? But the wow is I want you to repeat it, please. It was something about how we get that way.
Yeah.
Is
So
the trauma response, like I never put that together.
yeah. See, thinking about it in the sense that like what we do when we go into fight or flight is we become like we're looking for the threat, right? Like we're hyper vigilant to what threat is going on around us. You can see like that we get more oxygen in our lungs so that we can run, our muscles get stronger. We take the energy away from our belly. And so the other things that are happening is our senses get heightened. So we become more sensitive by needing to be constantly vigilant for trauma. We're constantly looking for trauma. And so these other senses kind of get strengthened. It's also like we're going to turn off some of them as we dissociate, and we're going to turn on some other ones in order to survive. And so this happens a lot with people with trauma. They're often the most sensitive of all people. And this is why. So it says experiencing trauma can cause us to turn off certain senses and also to turn on other senses. This can create an almost hypersensitivity as we access other ways of getting information, which we'll discuss here. So the clair is a word describing types of clear sensitivity corresponding to our physical and our intuitive senses. And clair begins words that name our intuitive abilities. So defining which way that we get our information will be helpful. I had it for our Reiki practice when I taught Reiki, so I translated this from one of my Reiki manuals. But the following are definitions of the various clair senses. So the first one is clairvoyance. And this is clear seeing. This is when visions, past, present, and future flash through our mind's eye or our third eye, much like a daydream. And many of us are highly visual and able to understand an idea best when we see it written or sketched out as an image on a computer screen or on a canvas. Visual people often choose to be artists, builders, photographers, decorators, designers, and so forth. If this sounds familiar, your clairvoyance is most likely a dominant sense. And the other thing I want to say is that we can have all of these, we can have one of these, we can have several of them. So everybody's going to be different, you know, but I promise you, the more you practice yoga, you're probably going to be turning on all of these at some point. Clairaudience means clear hearing. And this is when we hear words, sounds, or music in our own mind's voice. On rare occasions, spirit may be able to create audible sound, though this takes tremendous amount of focused energy. Some of us best retain and comprehend information when we hear it spoken aloud. Our natural talents tend to lie in our auditory faculties, often making us gifted musicians, singers, songwriters, and public speakers. If this feels right for you, clairaudience might be the leading sense for you. So we've got clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. This is like visions, and we're actually training our mind to do that too when we're doing guided meditations and such. So that muscle starts to get stronger from that, and also from trauma, we tend to pick up these senses. And then we've got clear hearing. And so this can be like, again, like it's saying, hearing sounds, I know some people that even when they would practice healing work, they would hear tones in their ear. And that was how they were getting information for doing their healing treatments on people as well. So just keeping that in mind, that's also a way we can pick up information. And then we've got clairsentience, which is clear feeling. And this entails feeling a person's or spirit's emotions or feeling another's physical pain. Many of us are clairsentient without consciously being aware of it. And when we get a strong gut feeling, positive or negative, about someone that we just met, or when we get the chills for no apparent reason, we may be tuning into the emotional energy of a person or a spirit around us. When we are highly sensitive and are in tune with not only our own feelings, but also the feelings of others, this makes us natural healers and caregivers. We often feel inspired to pursue careers as doctors, therapists, counselors, nannies, and teachers. If this is you, clairsentience is at the top of your sense list. This is also sometimes called being an empath. So these are the feelers. I remember having this since I was a little girl, and getting into anxious places was something that would just set me off. It was something that I didn't realize until I was much older. But going into places like schools, hospitals, airports, things where there's high anxiety would absolutely send me through the roof since I was like a little girl. Sporting events, loud games, things like that, where the energy is just like really high. So this is like another way that some of us pick up information, is we feel it. And then there's clairalience, which means clear smelling. This is being able to smell odors that do not have any kind of physical source. Instances of this could include smelling the perfume or the cigarette smoke of a deceased relative, used as a sign of their presence around us. And when our sense of smell is strong and distinct, we may find that certain smells connect us to past memories, or we may be drawn to working as florists, wine tasters, or perfume fragrance creators, or maybe even working with essential oils and flowers and things like that for healing. For me, this shows up in a way that, like, when I lived far away from my parents for a long time. And whenever I know that I need to call one of them or there's an issue, I smell my dad's cologne for my dad, and I smell my mom's chocolate buttermilk cake. But it's like the way that my higher self or the universe speaks to me. And so I've just learned to kind of understand that. But this is another way that the universe, our higher selves, can speak through us, try to communicate. And then we've got clairgustance, and this means clear tasting. This is the ability to taste something that isn't actually there. This experience oftentimes comes from out of the blue when a deceased loved one is attempting to communicate a memory or association we have with a particular food or beverage that reminds us of them. If we have a heightened sense of taste, this would make us natural chefs, bakers, or food critics. They say sometimes too that these are kind of the people that when they do like intuitive readings and they're like, I taste blood in my mouth or something like that, when there's been a murder, or maybe you're picking up on energy around you and you can start to taste certain foods. Things like that would kind of be another way that spirit or the universe can communicate to us too. And so the last one we're going to talk about is claircognizance, and this means clear knowing. This is when we have knowledge of people or events that we would not normally have knowledge about. Spirit impresses us with truths that simply pop into our minds from out of nowhere. An example of this would be a premonition, forewarning of something that will happen in the future. Claircognizance requires tremendous faith because there's often no practical explanation for why we should suddenly know something. Many philosophers, professors, doctors, scientists, and religious and spiritual leaders and powerful sales and business leaders tend to be highly intuitive, and some to just know the facts with a sense of certainty. If this is you, consider claircognizant as one of your dominant senses. This would be also known as being intuitive. So if we intuit something or we just know. And I think, you know, the universe likes to speak to us, all of us really in this form. It's just whether we're listening or not. But it might be something like you're sitting at a stoplight and you normally make a right. And for some reason, you know, you need to go left for that point in time. It's just like, I don't know why, but I'm going left today. I don't know. And maybe you diverted like an accident, or maybe there was something that you didn't need to go or see or witness or experience that direction, but you trusted that intuitive knowing of claircognizance. And so the reason that I want to share this in the trauma training is because we do become highly sensitive a lot of the times from trauma. And so empath is one of the more common ones for those of us with trauma. I would be willing to bet if you've had trauma in your life at any point, you are going to be an empath. And part of this comes from our need to feel safe. And so we strengthen these other ways of getting information so that we can feel safe. So these are other things that take place unknowingly a lot of the times when we're going through trauma. So I thought what I would have you guys do here is right below which of these clairs you identify with the most. Maybe there's several, and you can just kind of write like some of the ways that maybe you've experienced that. And then if you feel comfortable, we can share that also.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I'm able to like feel people in their possessions. So would that be sentience?
Yeah,
Sen-
I would say that probably it's going to be clairsentience because you're feeling the object. So like you're getting, a lot of the times it's going to be through our sense organs of like touch, feel. So definitely.
Thank
Because sentient and claircognizance.
Yes.
That's my intuition is like
Mhm.
always just like having no. Like
Totally.
people are like, some my kids are like, you're just psychic.
Yeah.
Because or they're always are like, how do you know? I'm like, I just do.
Exactly. Yeah.
I just know.
I feel the same.
I tell them all the time.
Yeah, it can. And sometimes even like with the claircognizance, the intuitiveness, like the other day you said something like, I know someone's thinking about me, or, you know, for me, this is like, it's almost like a cord. The way that somebody explained it to me is like when somebody does think about you, automatically an energetic cord reaches out from them to you and makes a connection. And so if we are those sensitive people, a lot of the times we're going to pick up on that connection right away. And I think that this happens again, probably claircognizance and clairsentience would be probably the more recognizable ones for a lot of people. And I would say clairvoyance too. As we deal with yoga, these kind of centers is we are making ourselves more sensitive. We're also tuning into visions, you know, in our mind's eye. And so this starts to strengthen our ability to activate that when we're not doing yoga, but also when we're just operating on day-to-day basis. So just to give us insight, you know, yes, these things probably have come up for you if you've been dealing with trauma in some way, shape, or form. I remember when I realized that I was an empath, I had been for my whole life because I had been literally, I had trauma really young. And I was going to counseling in like first to second grade because I was so overwhelmed with going to school. It was really like way too much energy for me to be around all that energy of like people and kids. And so I've felt that way from a very young age, but I didn't really understand that I was that way until I was probably in like my 30s. And so I remember telling my partner, I'm like, I can tell you that I'm different. I thought everybody was this way, but not everybody is this way. And I'm telling you, when I go into a room, I can tell you how everybody's feeling. I could pick up if there's someone in there that's not feeling good or that feels sad or that has some ailment or pain. And so for me, the important part of being aware of these things is so that we aren't interpreting other people's emotions or feelings as our own.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's been very, I think, confusing. It can be very confusing. And so I think this is why it's really important to work on self-care yet again. To unplug from people, the internet, the phone, and come back to ourselves as frequently as we can, at least at some point during the day. For me, when I wake up in the morning, I feel like is when I'm most in tune with myself. And so I try to really check in with me in the mornings. You know, you might have a certain time of day where you sit with yourself and really just ask yourself, am I picking up on other people's emotions, or am I actually feeling this way myself? Especially if we've been out in the world operating and maybe even teaching and holding space for others as we try to operate in that realm. It helps us to sustain our own energy, to just make sure that the self-care is present, because we are tapping into these higher senses, which require more energy. So this could be why we're zapped tired a lot of the times as well. And so I just want to really reiterate the self-care plan. So that's the other thing that I thought we would do here, is just write out like a self-care plan below. And it doesn't have to be anything that like you're going to be judging yourself if you miss, but like what would be some things on a daily basis that you could probably manage without feeling stressed, add into your day to make you feel a little bit more whole and a little less fragmented. And we talked about a lot of different ways, but this is like, no, on a daily basis, what is sustainable? What can I actually really do without feeling like I'm burdening myself or putting myself out or feeling stressed by trying to obtain that self-care plan? It could be something simple, like I'm going to take a shower every night before bed. I'm going to make a cup of tea in the morning and sit with myself. I'm going to build an altar and meditate in front of it for 5 minutes a day. I mean, sky's the limit, but just something that you feel.
Well, this is actually what I do.
Good. Even better.
I need to do better at my meditations.
Same. I feel like my self-care plan kind of revision.
Yeah, like I like the one thing I do neglect is meditation. Like, I definitely need to meditate every single day, a lot more. It's like, since I've been here, like, oh, I need to do this, you know, and just like incorporating that into my daily activities, it's just so much better.
Totally.
You know, but I do like, I do my singing bowl every single day when I wake up in the morning. I do my I am affirmations like 5-10 minutes, and then I am like my gratitude affirmations. I do that every day for 5 to 10 minutes, and then I do my oracle or a tarot reading for myself every day. So those I definitely do all the time. But my meditation.
So some of the things I put on my self-care plan was, and I feel like I wax and wane, but it's like a good indication of my self-care or lack of it for me. Like, I've always tried to meditate 10 minutes when I wake up in the morning. It's just like one small little window, but just like giving myself the unguided meditation, silence, drinking enough water. This is something I try to do all the time. It's a major self-care thing that is small and manageable. Yoga nidra before bed and foot massage and shower was my self-care plan. You guys want to share yours, Audrey?
Mine is meditation, pranayama when I wake up, water with lemon and honey, yoga or workout, coffee, smoothie, going outside, doing some computer work, lunch, some more work, going outside, dinner, shower, read or watch a documentary, journal, and doing like a bath or massage, and then yoga nidra and sleep.
Sounds like a good. Deborah?
Okay, so you just got another aha moment for me with this.
Yay.
So I'm clairvoyant, clairsentient, and claircognizant. So that's the world I deal with.
Uh-huh.
Very sensitive person. And my self-care plan, I just wrote stretch or yoga in the morning and meditation. So that moment where just coming into the world and feeling my body and calming everything down and having a really good attitude to whatever is coming. And then I said, walk in the gardens and enjoy. And that went click. Oh my gosh. What do I do when I walk around the gardens? Okay, I need to move that over here. That needs cleaned up. This has to be weeded. That tree's got to go. This one's okay. Dock's dirty. And I'm like, oh my God, there's the challenge of being that sensitive and being clairvoyant. You see and feel everything. So that becomes judgment and perfection and feeling of guilt and shame because this isn't done and that's not perfect. And so it can be, there's the overwhelmingness of being so sensitive or, plugged in. And I said, okay, instead, and here comes the yoga lessons, be the observer and say to myself, okay, there's you noticing these things and feeling these things and seeing these things.
Right.
And attached to this idea of what it's supposed to look like and feeling guilt or shame or pressure that it's not that way. So, in big letters, just enjoy and appreciate how amazing it is to see and feel and know and be so, receptive to this incredible beauty that and, even the ugliness, just being able to sense everything is really a special thing that, it's giving me a highly enriched experience that instead of judging, I can be really grateful for that. And then absorbing all that stuff is not the same energy as that needs to be done. It's wow, look at this, amazing. And those are the highest spiritual
Exactly.
that I've had, is like out of my paddleboard on the horizon in the sunset, just going, oh my God. Because I'm not going, well, that's not a perfect sunset. The horizon's
Yes.
awful. Why? Because I've let that go, surrender that judgment, and
Yes,
just go, wow, look at what I'm tapping into here. You know?
totally. It's so true. I couldn't agree more. I also really like to add play on like I was thinking about that when you were like talking about walking in the garden, but then it became stressful. Like I think like also letting ourselves like really play. So like I always try to ask myself, like, what does my inner child want to do today? It might be something really silly, like, well, I want to go get ice cream, or I want to get really dirty at the beach in the sand, where normally I would like be super clean and sit on a towel and like, or maybe I want to paint rocks or read or be creative or something like that. So I think also playing, especially those of us with trauma, have to remember to do that as well. Because we get so into like the self-care plan and the taking care of ourselves too, because it's necessary. But we have to remember that also playing and enjoying life is self-care. And so I try to also do this. Like even yesterday, I went home, was a little tired after teaching. I wanted to do the videos. And my partner was like, I'm going surfing. You should come to the beach with me. And right away, my first response was like, no, I need to do this. I should do this. I need to finish up some stuff. And I was like, no, this is a chance to go play. It doesn't mean I can't pick up where I left off when I get back. It's going to be about an hour. I'm going to go. And so like, even just making those conscious decisions of like, no, I deserve to go and have like some fresh air for a minute and get outside and like, let my inner child like be like, wow, water and a sunset. And so I think it's another really good thing to incorporate into our plan of self-care is just playfulness.
Yes, thank you for the reminder. Playfulness and humor too.
Yeah,
Part, just lightness of being and humor. We're pretty funny things as humans. And
totally.
maybe that's why they call it humor. Thanks for that.
Yeah. So this is kind of just an informative, like these are some other ways you guys might be getting information, tap into it. Don't be afraid of it. We're all capable of taking in information in different ways. And that's really just what it is. If we have a lot of those senses, like we're talking about too, Deborah, then the self-care comes in just a little bit. Remembering to disconnect and come back to ourselves is needed just a little bit more. And I think we all do that intuitively when those happen to be our gifts.
There's a book called The Highly Sensitive Person, and there's another one called The Highly Sensitive Person in Love. They've been around for a while, but that really helped me to go, oh my gosh, okay. This is of who I am, and how do I live in the world peacefully being highly sensitive like that. So those are really interesting books.
Good. I would love to read the one with In Love. That
Me
sounds
too.
really helpful. I'll give it to my partner. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I love that.
Don't you wish we could do that? Like, here's all you
I
need to
know.
know.
I know, right? I'd love to see which books he'd give me. Maybe something ridiculous like football plays or something.
Men are much simpler in general.
I know, much.
Complex on another level. So
They're good at the play. They're good at playing,
yeah, I miss having a man in my life. I'll say that much.
Sometimes.
True.
There's some days where I swear, like, there's some beauty in being with yourself. It's nice to have companionship. I'm a companionship person for sure, but some days.
Need a break too, yeah.
All right, so then we're gonna move into our Ujjayi breath. And I know you guys are familiar with this, but we're gonna just talk a little bit more about why it's so amazing. And then we're gonna do a little practice of our own where we're gonna try and do Ujjayi breath for like 10 minutes. We'll see how it goes. And of course, it's just an attempt. So if at all we get uncomfortable during it, we can totally decease. But let's talk Ujjayi on page 94. So it is said that some great yogis could breathe so slowly through the nose during yoga that even the finest hairs inside the nose would not even. Imagine how physically fit you must be to breathe so quietly during exertion. What are the benefits of breathing so slow? When and how do you do it? When I wrote my first book, Body, Mind, and Sport on Nose Breathing Exercises, I coined the phrase respiratory efficiency, which is achieved when nose breathing employs all 5 lobes of the lung, along with full diaphragmatic contraction and relaxation. The breath rate actually slows down instead of increasing as exertion increases. So in yoga and Ayurveda, there are slow and fast breathing practices, both with specific physiological benefits, as we know. One pilot study reported that breathing at a rate of just 1 breath per minute for 31 minutes caused a dramatic reduction of cardiovascular risk factors. So cardiovascular risk factors decreased by breathing once per minute for 31 minutes. So obviously that's pretty intense, right? Like 1 breath per minute. Again, this
It's
is
like super slow.
super slow, achievable, but super slow. Nothing I've ever experienced. So, stroke index, heart rate, cardiac index, and diastolic index, peak flow, ejection fraction, thoracic fluid index, index of contractility, ejection ratio, systolic time ratio, acceleration index. These are all big words. Systolic, diastolic, and mean arterial pressures, left stroke work index, stroke systemic vascular resistance index. So the study included 4 healthy individuals, highly skilled in yogic breathing, and they each breathed with a slow inspiration for 20 seconds, breath retention for 20 seconds, and slow expiration for 20 seconds for 31 consecutive minutes. They concluded that the breathing at a slow pace with a breath hold could influence the brain's cardiorespiratory center and be responsible for the cardiovascular benefits. Breathing this slow sounds impossible, right? But with practice, a surprising level of respiratory efficiency can be achieved. Once you master breath rates as slow as 1 to 3 breaths per minute at rest, you can begin to enjoy slower breath rates during the day naturally and spontaneously. Another study with 17 subjects reported a significant increase in baroreflex sensitivity, lower blood pressure, increased oxygen saturation, and reduction in anxiety with slow breathing. The maximal decrease in blood pressure and anxiety and maximal increase in baroreflex sensitivity and oxygen saturation was at a breath rate of 6 per minute. And Ujjayi breath was used for this exercise. So today, for our practice of Ujjayi, we're going to take a little stroll. So you can see the exercise below says, go for a walk and count how many steps that you take for each inhale and exhale. You may count 4 steps for each inhale and 4 steps for each exhale for a total of 8 steps. Slowly and comfortably over time, try to increase your total steps to 10, 15, and 20 steps for 1 complete inhale and exhale. Then right below what you were able to get to today. So we're going to do this little practice. The other thing I wanted to say is we talked a little bit about the Wim Hof breath and how it's training us also. It's kind of like the similar thing. It's training us to have bigger lung capacity. I don't know if anybody has seen Avatar 2. Has anyone seen that? So like did you remember like the part in the movie, they actually are training to breathe underwater.
Oh, I do remember that.
And so they're like telling them, like, you can hold your breath for longer periods of time, like these divers do really in the real world. But they were training them to do it. And so that's exactly what like this is. It's the same thing. And so we can actually do that. I highly recommend Avatar too, if you haven't seen it also. The other really cool thing is that they talk about Amrita. And so Amrita being like our life force energy or that fluid, you know, that keeps us alive, that when we die, all our Amrita is burned up. And so what they were doing in this movie is taking Amrita and they were using it, like it was getting sold on the black market to prolong people's life. And so I just like, again, not to like promote movies or anything, but I like that that movie had like some yogic concepts in it. We can actually train our breath. That's what a lot of divers do when they free dive and they go down in the water and they're able to stay down really low depths and they're able to hold their breath for a very long time. They've trained their lung capacity to get more vast. And so we can do that ourselves as well. And we know that when we're able to do that, it affects our nervous system. So there's a lot of benefit to that. It also prolongs our life. They say that the yogis measure the length of their life by how many breaths we take. And so we ideally want to be taking less breaths. So we're going to pause and take a little 15-minute stroll. It's also just good. Hopefully you guys can maybe get outside to do your walk. Even if you don't go very far, just to get a little sunshine too. And we'll come back, and when you come back, I want you to write down the number that you got. So what we're doing is we're counting how many breaths we get, how many steps we get, excuse me, during our inhalation, and then how many breaths we get on our exhalation, how many steps, excuse me. So when we come back, we'll be writing down 2 numbers. We'll be counting the inhalation and the exhalation, okay? And
So you're
We have
trying to balance, sorry, are you trying to balance the number for X and N?
technically, it doesn't really matter. It would be better if we had a lower inhale and a higher exhale, as we kind of learned with like the 2-2-1 breath. So if you, and because it's Ujjayi, ideally that should be present too. So we're trying to do the Ujjayi breath as we're walking. And this one says like slow inhalation for 20 seconds. Then it holds the breath for 20 seconds and then it does a slow exhale for 20 seconds. So that's an option also. If you feel called to do that, you can have a more balanced breath, or you could, if you're gonna do the longer exhalation, that one's okay too. So you have the choice, but we're using Ujjayi. So there's the inhale. And you know what, let's just read through the Ujjayi how to practice too, because I think it would be helpful since you haven't taken the 200 hour yet, just to go over it. So let's do that before we head out for our little stroll. So it says how to practice. Ujjayi is a slow, gentle resistance pranayama known to calm the nervous system while enhancing self-awareness. The word Ujjayi is said to mean leading to success. I've also heard it as victory breath or ocean breath, which may be one of the many reasons to practice this deep, slow pranayama. Ujjayi has been reported to alleviate anxiety, depression, everyday stress, or post-traumatic stress, and also stress-related illness. The resistance created during Ujjayi is the key to its benefits. The slight contraction of the glottis in the back of the throat reduces airflow, and therefore forcing the diaphragm to work hard to contract fully. During the exhalation, there is an increased intrathoracic pressure, likely due to the slight contraction of the glottis and contraction of the abdominal muscles. During inhalation, the diaphragm is forced to fully contract to overcome breathing resistance, but this benefit happens only if both the inhalation and exhalation are slow and deep. While this technique is done slowly, the emphasis is on deep. It is this that results in the intensified parasympathetic rejuvenate, digest, and repair vagal activity. The mechanism contributing to Ujjayi's induced state of calm alertness include increased parasympathetic drive, calm of stress response symptoms, neuroendocrine release of hormones, and the thalamic generators. With a partial closing of the glottis in the back of the throat, breathe slowly and gently through the nose. The resistance created by contracting the back of the throat or the glottis creates an audible breathing sound. It sounds like the ocean, or sometimes called Darth Vader breath. This sound is made during both inhalation and exhalation with the mouth closed. During the inhale, the abdominal muscles relax, and during the exhale, they contract, as they are secondary muscles of respiration. So start by practicing a slow, long, comfortable inhale, followed by a slow, long, comfortable exhale. Find a rhythm that you can maintain for 10 to 20 minutes. For example, a 3-6 count inhale and a 3-6 count exhale before adding any breath retention or kumbhaka. Be sure that you can comfortably maintain a rhythm of 6 breaths per minute, 5 seconds on the inhale and 5 seconds on the exhale. So the main thing with like Ujjayi breath is the constriction in the throat. And so if we want to feel what that feels like without finding the constriction, just tuck your chin to your chest and then touch your chin to your chest as much as you can. Now inhale through the nose. You can feel the constriction that you have on your throat there. That's what we want to find in the throat when the head is straight. So now we're going to try and find it while the head is straight. And I feel like you can always see the constriction too in the throat area, like you're watching your throat in the video while you do it. So today when we're doing our walk, long, slow inhalation, slight kumbhaka or breath retention at the top. You can determine how long you want that to be. Kumbhaka means breath retention. It's the same. And then slow exhale. Okay. This is going to be how we practice our Ujjayi for the walk. So let's take a 15-minute stroll. And then we'll come on back and you guys can write down your number for your steps and your breath. Okay? Questions?
Everything's frozen. Audrey, are they frozen?
I'm here.
Are they
I can
frozen?
hear everything.
Okay.
Are we okay?
I think they just came back. They just froze for like 1 minute.
I did see that the computer.
We're okay now.
Okay, good.
So we'll be back on in 15 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. See you guys shortly.